If you were told to keep your wedding low and simple, would you follow the advice, or would you want to please your mother and have an elaborate wedding? The bride, Adobi, sat in front of a mirror, her face glowing as a makeup artist applied the final touches. Her mother, Mema Nika, stood behind her, raining praises on her daughter. The house was alive with the chatter of relatives, and the rhythmic drumming of traditional Igbo music echoed from the courtyard. The air was thick with the scent of jollof rice and fried chicken, and the yard was decorated with bright flowers and colorful fabrics. Mema Nika smiled warmly, placing her hands on Adobe's shoulders. "My dear, today is the happiest day of my life. Smile for me," she said. Adobe forced a smile, but her heart was heavy. She couldn't stop thinking about what had happened a few weeks before the wedding preparations began. Adobe and her fiancé, Chaik, had gone to the market to buy some items for the ceremony. As they browsed through the stalls, a pregnant mad woman approached them, pointing directly at Adobe. Her voice was loud and strange as she warned, "Be careful, my daughter. Keep your wedding simple." Then, the mad woman laughed and walked away, her words leaving everyone in the market staring. Some market women whispered to Adobe, "Listen to her. Mad people sometimes speak the truth. They see things we don't." Feeling uneasy, Adobe hurriedly bought what she needed and left with Chaik. Later that evening, Adobe shared the incident with Mema Nika. "Mama, a mad woman warned me to keep my wedding simple," she said nervously. But Mema Nika dismissed the story, waving her hand. "Adobe, don't mind that mad woman. What does she know? We must have an elaborate wedding. I've waited too long for this day," she said firmly. As the days passed, Mema Nika intensified the wedding preparations. She invited her wealthy friends and planned a grand ceremony that everyone in the village would talk about for years. One evening, Adobe tried to reason with her mother. "Mama, Chaik and I have decided on a simple wedding. Please understand," she pleaded. Mema Nika's face changed, and she began crying loudly. "So my enemies have finally succeeded. They don't want me to enjoy the fruit of my labor. You want to disgrace me after everything I've done for you and your siblings." Adobe felt her heart sink. Mema Nika continued, "Look at your elder sister, Nika. Her husband is poor, and they are not legally married. And your second sister, Ifoma, gave birth out of wedlock. I have worked so hard to raise all of you, and now the one thing I ask, you want to deprive me." Tears rolled down Mema Nika's eyes as she sat on the couch. She reminded Adobe of how she had attended her friends' children's elaborate weddings and how much she had longed for this moment. "I have already invited my friends. How will I face them if you do this to me?" she cried. Adobe felt torn. She left the living room and went into the bedroom, where Chaik was waiting. "What is it this time?" Chaik asked gently. Adobe sighed deeply. "Mama is insisting on an elaborate wedding. I think we should just go along with her plans. You know how she is. If we don't, it's going to be a long and stressful journey for us," she said. Chaik frowned. "But you don't want that kind of wedding. This is about us, not her." "I know," Adobe said softly, her voice breaking. "But I'm already pregnant. If the bump starts to show, the priest won't wed us. It's against the church's rules. Let's just do what she wants and get it over with." Chaik nodded reluctantly. "All right, let's make her happy. But remember, this is our life, Adobe. After the wedding, we must set our boundaries." With that, the couple agreed to go along with Mema Nika's plans, even though Adobe couldn't shake off the mad woman's warning. Adobe's wedding day was one to remember. It was a big and grand celebration that brought joy and excitement to everyone who attended. The church was decorated with bright, beautiful colors, and the seats were filled with a large crowd of family, friends, and well-wishers. The air buzzed with laughter, chatter, and the sweet sound of wedding songs. Adobe, the bride, looked stunning in her white gown. Her beauty shone as she walked gracefully down the aisle, her husband-to-be, Chaik, by her side. Chaik wore a well-fitted suit and had a proud smile on his face as he held Adobe's hand tightly. Everyone in the church admired the couple and whispered about how perfect they looked together. Guests were dressed in their best clothes, and the mood was cheerful. People crowded the dance floor, swaying to the music played by the lively band. The master of ceremony, MC, took the microphone and announced, "No spraying of money on the couple, please. Drop any gifts or cash into the fancy bucket provided." Adobi and Chike danced happily, their faces glowing with joy. Meanwhile, Mama Nika, Adobi's mother, kept a close eye on everything. She walked over to the caterers, giving them clear instructions. "Serve my club women first," she said. "They are rich, and they must be well taken care of. Make sure they have enough food." Mama Nika moved around to ensure everything was in order, determined to keep the day perfect for her daughter. Seated in the corner was Adobi's grandmother, Mama Yugochi. She didn't join the dancing or the lively chatter but watched everything quietly. Her sharp eyes followed Adobi's every move as if she was searching for something. Finally, she stood up and walked toward the dance floor. She had a bundle of fresh Naira notes in her hands, and with a warm smile, she dropped the money into the fancy bucket meant for gifts. Hugging Adobi tightly, Mama Yugochi whispered, "God bless your new home, my golden girl." This was the nickname she had given Adobi as a child because she was special, smart, hardworking, and very different from her siblings. Adobi smiled warmly at her grandmother, but as Mama Yugochi placed her hand on her stomach during the hug, Adobi felt a sudden shiver. The touch sent a strange feeling through her body. She quickly shook it off and forced a smile, but her husband, Chike, noticed. "Are you okay, Adobi?" he asked, looking concerned. She nodded and replied softly, "I'm fine," though her smile didn't reach her eyes. Later in the evening, as the guests began leaving, Adobi walked around, thanking them for coming and escorting them to their cars. She was exhausted but happy. Suddenly, she noticed her grandmother sitting alone in a quiet corner, muttering softly to herself. Concerned, Adobi approached her. "Grandma, are you okay?" she asked, kneeling beside her. Mama Yugochi looked up sharply, her eyes colder and more calculating than before. For a moment, she stared at Adobi without speaking. Then, her expression softened into a small smile. "Yes, I'm fine, my golden girl. Go and enjoy your night," she said in a calm voice. Though her grandmother smiled, Adobi couldn't shake off the uneasy feeling in her heart as she returned to her husband's side. After Adobi and Chike's beautiful wedding, her sisters helped her pack all the gifts into the car boot. They drove home happily, laughing and talking about the events of the day. They thanked God for the good weather that made everything perfect. When they got home, Adobi's mother handed her a gift, a sexy lingerie set. She knew her daughter was shy and wanted her to feel confident and look attractive for her husband. Adobi had patiently kept herself for the right man, and now she wanted to make her marriage special. The next morning, Adobi and Chike woke up feeling excited. They started unboxing their wedding gifts. Among the items were a brand new fridge, cooking utensils, and many other lovely things. But one gift caught Adobi's attention. When she unwrapped it, she found a torn suit that looked like an old rag. Adobi and Chike stood staring at it, confused and upset. Who could have done such a wicked thing? They wondered. Without thinking twice, they decided to discard it and burned it immediately. A few months later, Adobi gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him Junior. Their home was filled with love and laughter. Adobi and Chike were proud parents, enjoying every moment of their son's early years. For 5 years, life was sweet and peaceful. Then, out of nowhere, their joy was tested. One day, Junior began having seizures and convulsions. Adobi was terrified. "Honey, Junior is convulsing again," she would cry, calling Chike at work. Chike would drop everything and rush home, driving at top speed on the highway. Put an iron spoon in his mouth to stop him from biting his tongue, he would instruct Adobi over the phone. The first time the seizures happened, Junior was playing with his friends in the garden. Suddenly, he fell to the ground and started shaking uncontrollably. A kind neighbor who happened to be nearby rushed to help. The neighbor, an elderly herbalist, rubbed a special treatment on Junior's face and body. The treatment calmed Junior down and stopped the convulsions. Later, the herbalist explained that, traditionally, they believed a child might be seeing a devilish masquerade that frightened him so much that he convulsed. Adobi and Chike were desperate to find a permanent solution. They took Junior to local hospitals and tried different treatments, but nothing worked. The herbalist treatment was the only thing that helped, but it was very expensive. Despite the cost, they had no choice but to keep buying it to help their son. Their once joyful home was now filled with worry and sadness as they struggled to save Junior. From that day, things went from bad to worse. It was like jumping from the frying pan into the fire. Junior's sickness was draining all their money. Chike started borrowing loans from his office just to cover the hospital bills. Adobi, who owned a small shop near their house, watched as her shop became completely empty. They struggled to eat each day. Chike's job at the company was also at risk. His performance had dropped because he was always worried about his family. As the head of marketing, his poor results began affecting the company. The manager called him several times to warn him. "Chike, your work is not meeting expectations." Chike told his wife about the warnings, and she advised him. "Please focus, Chike. We need your salary to survive and care for Junior." But Adobi's own problems were growing. She couldn't pay the rent for her shop, so she had to close it. At night, while they were trying to sleep, Junior would suddenly scream from his room. Adobi and Chike would jump out of bed and rush to him, trying to calm him down. "Jesus, help us!" Adobi would cry. They had already spent all their money on treatment. Adobi would take anointing oil and pray over Junior until he calmed down. With tears in her eyes, she would cry, "I don't want to lose my child." Chike would hold her, comforting her. "I'm here for you and Junior. We'll get through this together." Then, Chike lost his job. The company couldn't keep him any longer because of his poor performance. Desperately, he started working as a bus conductor, shouting for passengers on the road to earn some money. Adobi, on the other hand, started washing clothes and running errands for their neighbors to get paid. They sold most of their belongings and moved into a tiny apartment where they shared a public toilet with other tenants. Their once comfortable life was gone, but they didn't share their pain with anyone. They encouraged each other, saying, "We will get through this together." One day, one of Adobi's wealthy clients, who called her to clean his hotel rooms, tried to take advantage of her. "You're too young and beautiful to be suffering like this," he said. "If you agree to be with me, I'll take care of you. I have money." But Adobi stayed faithful to her husband. Even though they were poor, she was grateful. One night, after Junior had another seizure, Adobi broke down. She screamed, "God, why would you let us suffer like this? We've been faithful to you. We've paid our tithes, given to others, and even helped build the church, but you're just watching us suffer. What kind of father are you?" Tears streamed down her face. Chike quickly covered her mouth. "Don't say that, Adobi. God is always faithful. Let us count the blessings we've had before. Even if things are tough now, maybe this is a test of our faith." But Adobi shook her head. "I'm weak. I can't keep going through all this," she said, leaning on him. "Let us be strong for Junior," he replied, holding her tightly. They took food on credit from nearby shops, but when they couldn't pay back, the shop owners began insulting them in public. Adobi would hide whenever people came to ask for their money. Sometimes, she would send Junior to tell them, "My mother is not around." The embarrassment was too much for them to bear. Even though Adobi was reluctant to pray, Chike encouraged her. Together, they knelt in their tiny, empty room. With tears in their eyes, they poured out their hearts, asking God for mercy and to hear them. Their voices echoed in the silence, and they begged God to save them from their suffering. It all started one Sunday morning. Adobi and her husband, Chike, struggled to prepare for church. Life had not been easy for them. They barely had enough to eat, let alone give as an offering. Despite everything, Adobi took the little money she had and went to church with faith in her heart. During the service, A guest minister, who was a prophetess, was invited to speak. While Adobi was giving her offering, the prophetess called her out. She looked at Adobi and said, "An old woman has been watching your every move and that of your husband. She has sworn that you will never see happiness." Adobi froze. Her heart sank, and tears began to roll down her cheeks. She didn't know what to say. The prophetess continued, "The woman is envious of your kind heart and does not want anything good to come your way. Even your son's epilepsy is not ordinary. If you had listened to the warnings of the mad woman, you could have saved yourself from all this trouble. But there is still hope. There is a remedy." Chaik, who had been watching from his seat, quickly came to console Adobi. He whispered to her, "God is fighting for us. This battle is not ours but his. Don't worry. Everything will be fine." When they got home, Adobi couldn't stop crying. She started thinking about everything the prophetess said. Memories came flooding back. She traced everything back to her wedding day. Who could be against me? She wondered. She remembered how the mad woman had shouted the warnings. She recalled the torn suit Chaik received as a wedding gift and the strange things that had happened since then. Everything suddenly made sense. The prophetess had advised them to fast and pray for 7 days and then take a brand new wrapper to all the elderly women in their family. Adobi didn't have much money, but she remembered that she had some new wrappers left from her wedding gifts. She decided to use those. After the 7 days of fasting and prayer, Adobi and Chaik followed the prophetess's instructions. Adobi went to her mother's house and gifted her the wrapper. Her mother prayed for her and blessed her. She then visited her grandmother and gave her a wrapper too. Her grandmother also prayed for her and blessed her. No one in the family knew what Adobi and her husband were going through. Adobi made sure to act cheerful whenever they called to check on her. A few weeks later, Adobi's mother called her with some news. "Your grandmother is very ill," she said, her voice shaky. Adobi remembered the prophetess's words. As each person receives the wrapper, it will be like returning every evil arrow back to the sender. Anger boiled within Adobi as she headed to her grandmother's house. When she arrived, Adobi confronted her grandmother. She shouted, demanding the truth. "Confess," she screamed. "Tell me what you have done to me and my family." Her grandmother, weak and trembling, began to cry. Adobi's mother was there too, shocked and confused. Her grandmother finally confessed, "I was jealous of you. You are kind, beautiful, and everyone loves you. I couldn't bear to see you happy, so I cursed you and your family. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." Adobi's mother broke down in tears. She begged Adobi for forgiveness too. "I pressured you into having that elaborate wedding. I'm so sorry, my daughter," she said. In her final moments, the grandmother, with a weak voice, whispered, "Adobi, I regret everything. Please let my soul find peace. Forgive me." Through her tears, Adobi found the strength to forgive her. She held her grandmother's hand and prayed for her. Moments later, her grandmother passed away. Not long after, Adobi and Chaik felt a sense of relief, as though a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders. They continued to pray and trust God. A few days later, Chaik received a call. It was from a company he had submitted his CV to a long time ago. They wanted to employ him. He couldn't believe it. It felt like a miracle. Adobi and Chaik thanked God for his intervention and for fighting their battles. The prophetess prayed for their family and committed them into God's hands. From that moment, Adobi and Chaik's lives began to turn around. They learned to trust God in everything and to keep their faith strong, no matter the challenges. Lesson: this story teaches that jealousy and envy can destroy lives, but forgiveness and faith can heal even the deepest wounds. Adobi's willingness to forgive her grandmother and trust God led to a new beginning for her family.